Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack make it backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the bay.
Next, allegations of CIA drug trafficking. Monday, the House Select Committee on Intelligence heard testimony concerning a report alleging the agency's involvement in trafficking cocaine to the Los Angeles area.
Well, I mean, of course, you know, it's officially said that he had over 1,000 employees, but it was about 40 of us, and we were all kids. I mean, really, just think about it. Ricky was only 22 to about 25 years old at the height of his game and making $2 to $3 million a day. I was only 19 years old. I was a pup. But, you know, if I said that I made 10% of what he made, that's $100,000 a day. You know, $200,000 a day. You look at it, you know, in a month time, that's $3 million a month. You know, $36 million a year. Well, it wasn't hard to get caught up in the drug game. Again, like I said, you have so much access. Unfortunately, known to myself that we didn't know exactly where we were getting it from. We thought we were getting it from some Colombian guys, but you know, 20, 30 years later, we found out that, you know, our own government was behind it, and so that's pretty tough to digest. But I also realized if you're going to make $2 to $3 million a day selling poison, there's no way that somebody's not getting their cut. They're split out of it. That's the nature of the beast. I mean, I do realize that the dope game killed everything that I loved. I really loved my people, even though I was only poisoning my own people. I was poisoning my own community.
Blondon, then. What did you know about him? Did you know his name?
No, just Danilo.
Danilo.
And we used to call him Nika.
You don't even know his last name?
No.
Did he ever talk about the government, the U.S. government?
No, never.
DEA, CIA?
No,
nothing.
The newspaper asserted that members of the CIA's army in Nicaragua helped spark a crack cocaine explosion in urban America in the 1980s. The report said two Nicaraguans, Danilo Blandon and Norwin Meneses, sold tons of cocaine to Los Angeles drug dealer Ricky Ross. The article said Blandon and Meneses funneled millions of dollars in profits to CIA-backed rebels fighting the leftist Sandinista government in Nicaragua.
Ruling and everything because I'm part of it. And the judge asked the prosecutor to get a written statement from you saying there wasn't no involvement. You guys wrote a letter saying there's no involvement. Then you come up here and say, it's still going on. So come Tuesday, the judge gonna tell me, oh, it was no involvement. You get 20 years, Rick get life. So what are we supposed to do?
If I could I want to just be very clear.
Please allow him to answer so that you can hear his answer. Perhaps you might have a question once his answer has been stated.
I want to be very clear. The judge asked for an affidavit from the Central Intelligence Agency whether any one of 5 individuals by name had ever had any association with the Central Intelligence Agency. Please let me finish. First of all, we answered that question. It's a public available answer. The record of that affidavit is available. Anybody wants to see it. And we found that none of the 5 named individuals had ever had any association with the Central Intelligence Agency. How come we were able to do that? I will tell you how come we were able to do that. Because we keep very close records on the people.
Just a minute. I'm going to have to ask that we dismiss those who are unwilling and unable to listen to the others who want questions answered.
Because we keep very close records of those people with which we've ever done business or who we're trying to develop into doing our assets. So in the case of the question from this judge, it was completely and thoroughly answered, and I want to stress that it was answered in the public record.
But on that declaration, it does say, on that declaration, it said nor when Manessa was, and you guys knew that he was involved 20 years ago. And the declaration said he was a Nicaraguan mafia. And you guys knew he was selling drugs, but you didn't arrest him. You guys arrested him for 1 kilo and then gonna say me and Rick had 100 kilos and didn't even have no cocaine. And he get 5 years. Rick looking at life. It's my first offense, I'm looking at 20. And he's on his way out. And Blandone is out of jail and you paid him $166,000.
Now, what if this happened? Some people came and snatched up you and everybody you knew, threw y'all on a boat, held y'all hostage, and forced y'all to build up their infrastructure. And then about 350 years later, they put some shit like crack on your kids, my nigga. Now, that's Reed from Snowfall level of foul shit right there, boy. And to be honest, as a people, I don't think we'll ever be able to comprehend what we went through. But what up, though? Shit got Popalot. We back on MOBB business. We in sunny California with it. Y'all go ahead and meet us in South Central. Gangland, USA. Now, with arguably two of the best shows running on network television right now being BMF and Snowfall, both shows being based on two of the biggest drug kingpins that this nation has ever seen, with Freeway Rick Ross and Big Meech. Can't forget Southwest T. I kind of think he get left out. Though the show is what I would say loosely based on real life events, it kind of gives us an insight into how those organizations were run. And on top of that, some of the key players in those organizations. And the person that we're covering today is going to be exactly that, going on to help Freeway Ricky Ross become the biggest crack kingpin that the nation has ever seen, definitely at that time. And that person is going to be a guy by the name of Cornell Ward. Now, unless you're in the Los Angeles area or familiar with the history of football in the city of Los Angeles, or even youth football or high school football, the name Cornell Ward might not sound familiar to you. But if you're one of the many fans tuned in to Snowfall every week, you know exactly who Cornell Ward is. The only thing is they call him Leon. Leon Simmons, Lee, or Little Lee, is going to be one of the main characters portrayed on the show Snowfall. Now, in a role that is being played by Isaiah John, who I would say is doing a fantastic job. He plays the role of close friend, or I would say even best friend, to the main actor on the show, Franklin Saint. The show takes place in the mid-1980s, and it covers the Nicaraguan Contra scandal. And just like Leon in the show, Cornell Ward was a very close friend of Freeway Ricky Ross and would end up being a lieutenant, and some would even say a right-hand man in his organization. And just like the show depicts, the two friends would get in the drug game very early on, with Cornell Ward saying in an interview that from the age of 19 to the age of 22, he essentially pumped poison into the community. And I'm sure there's no way that he could possibly fathom it at that time. But with the help of him and a few other guys, they would aid Rick Ross in running the biggest crack distribution network in the history of crack distribution networks. But before crack would go on to make him and guys like Freeway Ricky Ross overnight millionaires, Cornell Ward was just a kid from South Central growing up in a house with a single mother. And it seems like all his life he had a love for football, even excelling at it, with the highlight of his career being his first year on campus at Compton Community College, or Compton College as it's known now, where he would go on to earn All-American honors, But that wouldn't last long, as the world around him was completely changing, and he would see the neighborhood that he grew up in essentially turn into the headquarters for the crack epidemic. And after being approached by his close friend Rick with a proposition to make money, the rest was history. And just like it would play out on the show, Freeway Franklin Saint would go through a series of small dealers before he would go on to meet Teddy or Danilo Blandone. But unlike the show, Danilo Blandone is not directly employed by the CIA. He was more like a CIA operative. And with that connection to Blandone and Blandone's connection to the CIA, Cornell and Rick will become two of the biggest pawns in the United States' chess game of pulling strings throughout the world, as a lot of those profits from those drugs that they were pumping into the community would go to rebels 1,000 miles away trying to overthrow the Sandinista government. A lot of times when I do episodes, especially talking about the height of the crack epidemic, I talk about how it was the worst and the best thing to happen to the black community, because just like Cornell Ward and Rick Ross was able to go on to make millions of dollars in the game at the time, Cornell would lose 3 family members due to the addiction of crack cocaine. So it kind of hits you on both sides. While Rick Ross would show no signs of slowing up and go on to become what I call a career kingpin, Cornell Ward, on the other hand, is just like the character depicted on the Snowfall show he was doing